Glad you could meet with me today to discuss your child's education.
I'm good, thanks. Yes, I'm looking forward to learning about the possible placements for my children. I know that if they have the right education, they can definitely succeed.
Yeah, I think so too. Tell me a little bit more about your children.
Well, I have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. All 3 of them have hearing loss. My oldest, Lily, is in 2nd grade and has a profound hearing loss. She also has cochlear implants, but she hasn't been successful with them. And I also have my middle child, Henry. He's doing pretty well. He's hard of hearing, but he benefits with bilateral hearing aids. He's definitely the talker of the family.
Yeah.
And then I have, last but not least, Tommy. He's my youngest. He's 5 years old and has a severe to profound loss, so I'm nervous about him, but he'll be starting school next year.
Yeah, seems like you've got your hands full. How do you communicate with your children primarily? Do you do anything outside of your normal communication to work with them?
Yes. Well, our family is fluent in sign language, so I guess that would be our primary mode of communication, although we do use speech as well. Since my husband and I are both hearing, we speak to each other, and Henry participates when he can.
Alright, so have you had any problems with Lily or Henry in school right now? What are your concerns that you may have for Tommy as he enters school?
Well, I've been homeschooling Lily and Henry, but I want them to have good peer groups, and I don't have the time for homeschooling anymore, especially with 3 children. I also want Tommy to cultivate his speech and hearing skills that he's already developed.
Yeah. Alright, thanks for all the background information. Let's get started about some potential school settings for your children. So what types do you already know about? Do you have any preference or any questions?
Well, I already know and have experienced everything about homeschool, and I just can't do it anymore. I'm aware of IDEA and the services that can be provided to my children through a public or residential education. However, I'm not entirely convinced that this is what's best for my children. So I'm sure that they might be left out of peer groups and just not develop socially.
Yeah. Okay, sounds like you've got homeschooling under control, so we're just not going to talk about that today. So let's start with public education. Here are some key points that you should know about public education before we delve in a little bit more. As you know, IDEA does provide free services to your children, so your child can receive additional instruction or services or speech therapy or oral rehabilitation at no cost to you. So that's great. Although these are free, you may not get the services that are like particularly what your children need, so they may miss out on some things.
Interesting. What about class sizes or classmates?
Well, public education, as you may know, because I'm sure you grew up in public education like myself, have very large class sizes. So noise may be a little bit louder, which isn't conducive to a good hearing environment for your children. So that's definitely an issue. Classmates, on the other hand, since the class sizes are larger, you will have plenty of peer groups for your children. Younger children also tend to be a little less judgmental in regards to children that are different than them. However, as they go up in school, some of your children may have issues because some of the other hearing peers may have not been exposed to deaf or hard of hearing children before.
So what about the academic curriculum? Will IDEA help tailor my child's work based on what they can actually achieve? Or will they be taught to the test since it's a federally funded setting?
Good question. IDEA will help tailor your child's academic plans to an extent with individualized education plans and the administration and teachers. However, due to the fact that it is federally funded and it's regulated by the government, your child may have issues regarding standardized testing.
Okay, I think I have a better idea of what a public setting would look like for my children. So, what about private schools? I know that they aren't federally funded by the government, but will they still be able to get the services they needed? And what about the curriculum?
Yeah. Since it is private, they will not receive services for free. So you would have to pay out of pocket. So, like I like to say, it'd be on your dime and on your own time. So, however, the academic curriculum may be a little more rigorous. Since it's smaller class sizes, it'll be a little more individualized to each student, and your child may have more academic success. Also, the class sizes are smaller, like I mentioned earlier, so less noise, which is definitely a plus.
I'm not sure if a private school is the place for me financially.
Mm.
So what about a residential school? I've heard a lot about them, but do I have to pay for it?
Yeah, that's fair. Some private schools do offer scholarships. However, for those budget-conscious individuals, it may not be the best choice. But the government does typically fund residential schools, so it means that that would be for free, just like a public education. Students are immersed in the deaf culture and community and have the opportunity to have deaf peer groups and deaf role models that are adults. Teachers and other professionals on site of the residential school are trained to teach and to work with each deaf individual.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty great deal. So where are they? And does my state have one? Will my child get the same education as at a residential school as they would at any other school?
Every state does have a school for the deaf or hard of hearing. Some even have multiple. Since we're in Tennessee, your child would definitely get the same education at Tennessee School for the Deaf as he or she would at a different public school because they follow Common Core. IDEA also applies here, so free services are available to your child.
Oh. So will my children have the same opportunities as hearing children if they attend a residential school?
Academically, yes. Your child will have the same opportunities because they do follow Common Core. However, since a residential school does immerse your children into the deaf culture and community, there is some concern about how your children will adapt to life after the residential school and outside of it if the majority of people they interact in the outside world are hearing individuals. Also, depending on how far away you live from this residential school, you may only get to see your child on the weekend, and some parents have some trouble with that because they feel like they don't get as much interaction and don't get to spend as much time with their children. So it really depends on the parents and how they feel about the setup.
So are there any other options? I know I'm sounding really picky, but I just want to make sure I have all the information to make the right decision.
Of course, and yeah, there are other options. And don't worry, you don't sound picky. I'm glad that you're asking me all these questions. I want to make sure that you get all the information that you need in order to make this choice because it's definitely a tough decision for parents and it really shows that you deeply care about your children and their future. So there's one other option that we can discuss today, and that's a day school.
Oh, thank you so much for your kind words. A day school? What does that mean? It sounds a lot like a public school.
It sort of is like a public school combined with a residential school. Basically, it's right in the middle. They're surrounded by peers who are deaf and hard of hearing. However, they do not stay every night. The curriculum also follows the same as public schools as well.
Huh. Well, I've got a ton of thinking to do. Thank you so much for your help. Are there any other resources I can look for?
Yeah. This is my pleasure. So there are many websites online that you can access information for yourself and for free. Also, there are many blogs by individuals going through your exact same thing. Parents who are hearing, who have deaf and hard of hearing children, amongst other disabilities. So if you Google search like any of these organizations, such as like Hands and Voices or the Knoxville Center for the Deaf or even Gallaudet University, you should find multiple resources to help you with your information. So ultimately, this decision is up to you and your husband, and you know your children best, and you know what they need in order to succeed. I hope this helps you gain a better understanding of what options are out there, and I encourage you to do more research to make the best choice possible for your individual children.
Thanks so much.